Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two we've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone. Tobies here too. This episode we're talking about The Life of Chuck by Stephen King. It's going to be a fairly spoiler heavy episode, but if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello, viewers, listeners. Welcome
Morning.
back.
Morning for me.
Okay. Morning for you, afternoon for me.
Toby.
And wherever you are and wherever time you're listening, welcome. I'm trying to find, where have I done with that? Is it that one then? Yeah, there we are. I was like, oh no, all my preamble work. Right, okay. Yes. Hello, viewers, listeners.
He's with us.
esteemed
There he is. Toby, I loved your text
drinkers.
I loved your text this morning.
What was it?
Just about the podcast. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've done this is the research I've done. Maybe you could try explore, blah blah. My one note is at 8:30 on a Sunday morning, 5 minutes before we start rolling. It doesn't leave me the right time to investigate maybe his influences. I will take that note for next time, and I will bluff my way through this episode.
Okay.
I have a little bit, but it's what someone else said that I didn't have time to verify. So I will put a clause
Yeah, I
on
did.
that
I
of
did. I did. I
made
did think
that
when I sent it, I was like, yeah, it's a bit of a hospital pass. This really.
No, but I love it. I love it. We're back involved.
So yeah, going back to what we were just briefly talking about before we came on air, clothing, new clothing, pants, trousers,
Toby's,
good wear. When you say pants, are you now Americanized and you mean trousers?
I guess so.
jeans?
Yeah. Trousers.
What has happened? What has happened to
But
you?
also
Scott?
French because it's Quebec. Well, now I'm in Toronto, but pantalons. If you've ever heard, pantalons.
Pantaloons.
Especially French for trousers.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I have been on the American continent a while, so yes, I don't mean underwear.
You're
Toby's got some sort of,
acclimatized.
is it a cow print, like a digital cow print? Not
Y-
quite.
Yeah, it's
Well, it's more funky than
it's
that.
a tracky bottoms, white on the back, cow print on the front. They're by a brand called Renowned, I think. Renowned. I have no idea about them. I just saw them in Selfridges one day when I was walking past. It was on a sale, big sales time. I was like, I've never bought anything from Selfridges. Let's have a look. These are just about within my range at 40 quid. For tracksuit bottoms, I thought was very expensive, but I've got a relatively good, well-paid job now, so I was like, I can afford to treat myself.
Nice.
And I bought this out there pair of crap cow print tracksuit bottoms, which I absolutely adore. They're slightly ill-fitting and oversized, but that's exactly what I want them for, in a sort of lounge around the house kind of way. I'm not ever going to sort of. Well, I did actually venture out to Tesco's wearing them.
Okay, that was going to be my question.
And I even went full wacky and put on my long, like I've got this trench coat style. I guess it's not even called a trench coat. It's a long coat, and it's white and black checkered.
Oh, nice.
The whole thing. So I put that on with this cow print white and blue-esque splurged trouser bottoms. I just looked completely out there.
People go, "Hey, buddy, the catwalk's a mile down that way.
You're in the wrong fucking.
Right, no professional models allowed."
Yeah, Paris is that way, son.
Nice. Was there a third person caveat to that when you said, "I think they're rather fetching"? Is there
everybody else has gone, what are you wearing?
Okay, that's what I was hinting at. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. You sort of emphasis on the I thought.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Are they cozy?
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're really, really very, like, the difference is, like, and I've been thinking about this last month. I've got a story and it's going somewhere, so bear with me.
Nice.
With quality clothing, I've never been a person that's been able to afford to buy what I would classify as quality clothing. I've always been a charity shop, Primark, fast fashion, I think it's called, stuff that comes in and goes out, lasts like a few months, half a year,
a
year. Yeah. And I always use this anecdote whenever I explain about buying new clothes, is that I was sat on Facebook one day looking at pictures from 15 years ago, and then I looked down and I was wearing the same clothes.
Just if you just wear it long enough, it will come back around to fashion, and then I was sort of set the trend.
So I was just like, I need to do a refresh of my thing, and I it was back in, I don't know, I've had these probably about 7 months, 8 months. These cow print trousers, and they're really good quality. They're very thick, cotton. They wash really well. They retain their shape and their color. Something that doesn't happen with all this fashion stuff.
No, yeah. I
and
love the new hoodie feel, huh?
Yeah, and Instagram has really nailed its algorithm in targeting me. So recently I found a company called White Stuff, which is probably not new to anybody that's any remotely even in the fashion world, but White Stuff is a sort of chain out here and probably in America as well that changed their approach and what they're trying to capture, the audience they're trying to capture and appeal to. And I come across this I think it's probably via some sales site or something like Brand Alley or something like that, and I fell in love with their clothing, so I started buying pieces from their lineup and started to fill out my wardrobe. And then Instagram, like, well, you like this, you might like this, and they put me onto this. They put me onto this company called And Sons Co-Trading, and my God, their clothing is stunning. Whoa. So good. I bought a tracksuit bottom and tops. Was the first piece I bought, and now we're going up a level here, money wise for me. It turned up and I put it on and I felt like $1 million. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not sure what to picture. Are you looking like a rapper? Is it quite extravagant-ish?
No. It's just a green tracksuit hoodie, thick quality, good cotton material with a white cord that comes down. Nothing out there, just a tracksuit.
There's a lot of high prices for some brands we've mentioned. Can we just say Toby is not receiving any? Are you receiving free stuff to?
No, but they're receiving a hell of a lot of my money.
Yeah, right.
So after buying that tracksuit, I then ended up going on eBay and looking for seconds and things from the same company, and I've gone from having none of their items to having 20 in the space of a month.
Oh, have you become the poster boy?
Yeah. So my wardrobe is now stocked full of this clothing company, and each piece has been exquisite.
Nice. I want to see a John Travolta strut down that street.
Yeah, it's coming, I'll tell you now. But yeah, nice. So I highly recommend them. If you want to give them a look, give them a shout out. I don't have any codes yet, but maybe if they listen to this, they can give us a code and we can attach it in the dialogue.
But just to clarify, they haven't yet. This was free. This is not a sponsored. It sounds it. Don't get me wrong. It
first 20. Sponsored. Yeah. There you go. First 20, you get 20% off your first order. So
right. Well,
use them.
Hey, that's big company. That was for free. I hope you enjoyed that.
They're UK as well.
Nice.
So
we're here to talk about Stephen King's If It Bleeds. A little short ditty, maybe under 100 pages.
So shall I just bust straight into my little breakdown? Okay. So the synopsis for Life of Chuck by Stephen King, a short novella featuring in If It Bleeds. The Life of Chuck follows one central character over just a few hours. This story threads through multiple lives over multiple years. First, following the life of Marty in a world just beginning to shut down, the internet and the power sources collapse, and the entire state of California is lost to the Pacific Ocean. And a mysterious figure known as Chuck is slowly overtaking every human space possible, and ending on the life of an actual character called Chuck in a world reminiscent of the one we know today. The stories jump in time lens to moments of connection that instantly form in the reader's mind. One such connection is a motif of the crescent-shaped scar on Chuck's hand, which is explained in greater significance near the end of the story. It's eventually revealed, though, through interconnecting threads that Chuck is dying of cancer after 39 years of life, which make the 39 great years before the retirement of Marty's world, and that of the aforementioned Marty is a manifestation of Chuck's inner consciousness going out. So that
probably should have said spoiler warning at the top of that.
Yeah, we could.
I thought that was going to be like a back of the book style blurb, but just leaves the mystery. But no,
we're going all in. I do apologise if you've. Yeah, we'll slot it in the edit. Yeah. So that's a little, very brief overview, and then we go into our reviews section. So, what people thought, the general public's consensus. So we'll start with some positives. Shay says, I am flabbergasted that the reviews for this piece are so negative. It's absolutely beautiful, and the last few lines were incredible. I love the premise. I love the structure. I love the revelation of it all. It's not horror in a way that King is known. It's more Carmen Maria Machado-esque horror. I don't know who that is, but apparently it's like that, which I think is a huge plus. It deals with a question and viewpoint, I think, about all the time and creates something horrifying and beautiful out of it. I will be recommending this, and it might be one of my favourite King pieces.
Whoa, that is high praise.
And Rissa follows up with, I think this is a beautiful piece of work by Stephen King. I had to sit there for a moment and take in what I had read, but I loved it. So yeah,
Nice.
There we go. And then we got Zach Sharif with the negative.
Are we going for the thumbs downers?
Yes, here we come. Like the first in the If It Bleeds novellas, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, this was enjoyable to read, but never really went anywhere. I feel like Mr. King could have done more in these 80 pages or so, but he wasted a lot of time and it just kind of stalled. Juliet the Book Slayer says succinctly, weird AF, 2 stars.
Okay. Okay, so I love it. It's I don't know if you've ever just seen a Spinal Tap. It's like a sort of mockumentary film when they're talking about reviews of their album, and it's like, this one's just 2 words, shit sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. And then Christina comes in with a bit more detail. I feel like The Life of Chuck was a ton of more or less irrelevant setup in order to facilitate around a paragraph of the point at the very end. It could have been done in a quarter of the pages or less with the same effect, in my opinion. Barely horror, wouldn't spend the time to read it again, and wouldn't have originally if I'd known how much of a waste of time it would feel like it was after finishing. Skip this one. There's more on offer than one can read in a lifetime. Well written, but pointless feeling.
A bit well written in there. It's like, skip it. It's well written, but
and
don't
this
read
is
it.
all. Yeah, this is all coming from someone whose favourite books are Sting Horror, King's horror novella collection.
Wait, say that again.
That was the tail up. She's just saying that she loves Stephen King horror novella generally, so she's disappointed.
Nice.
And then I've got a nice summary, but I'm not going to do this. I'll save this to the end.
Oh yeah, maybe we'll get our thoughts out.
Yeah, closing thoughts. But it'll be interesting to see where your thoughts sit on this and how it compares.
That's cool. I guess I definitely expected that, like breadth of lovers and haters. I've probably read this short story about 3 times now, 3.5 times.
Oh wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's you know, when someone's saying like it should have been shorter, I find shorts hard to judge. Like you sent me a few shorts in your time.
Yeah.
And you was like, let me know your feedback. And I'm always like quietly sweating, going, it's like, it's 3 pages. It's really hard to sort of, I don't know. It's not a format I'm that not familiar with, but every short story we ever read on this podcast, I'm probably going to go, it could have just been longer. It could have been longer. It should have been meatier. It should have been epic. It should have been 1,000 pages.
There's not enough depth.
But so I basically read this once and I had to keep going back because I was just slightly zoning out.
Yeah.
And then not quite getting it. Like
that's exactly
the
same
book isn't about Chuck, and I wasn't really clocking that the main character wasn't Chuck. And I was like, what, huh? Like, and then I just put something in my head that he was like a newscaster. Like it was about a newscaster retiring, and it's not at all. There's a billboard that says, thanks for 39 years, Chuck. So I was like, that sounds like something that like a Good Morning Fame person would do. So then I was halfway through.
Guy, isn't it? Yeah.
I was halfway through it and I'm thinking, it's not about that at all. I think I've got to go back because like I thought the guy was Chuck. And it's clearly not. It's just pay a bit of attention because he literally says, who the hell's Chuck?
That's exactly how I felt. I got massively confused at times. I'm very lost to the point where it's a distraction.
Like I can see that. Like, can I be asked to go back and figure it out? I'm almost at the end. Let's get through this one. But so now, anyway, I kind of adore this little story.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, the first time I read it, it was just like each time a different section was my favorite section.
Right.
The first time I read it, that first chapter. So it's done in 3 chapters, listener. And they're sort of arguably they're backwards in time.
Yeah, yeah,
sort of.
yeah. Exactly.
Arguably, they are not that connected stories. I mean, they are as an overall, but if you just had each of these stories, you wouldn't like this needs a beginning, this needs an end. You could probably argue each story is just satisfying on its own.
Could I ask, having read it 3 and a bit times, do you feel less confused now, or are you still elements of confusion going on?
Oh no, not at all.
Right.
Well, okay. I guess there's some stuff of like who the main character in the first one represents. Like, is that Chuck living out a sort of like that Passion of Christ, where on the cross he's sort of most of the film is just him imagining his life if he'd have done something different.
Yep.
So I guess probably there is stuff that I don't understand because I don't know about it, if that makes sense. But then the second time, the second story stood out to me and it was incredibly beautiful. And then the third time, the last story was the most beautiful. And it sort of made more sense. Again, I guess I glazed that third story each time until the last time. What the hell is a cupola? I had to Google that one. He keeps going on about it. Just say attic.
What is a cupola? Oh, yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an attic. It is a very distinct thing when you Google it.
Yeah, it's like a room at the top of the house.
It's like a turret. It's like a watchtower turret. But it was just like, he just uses the word a lot. And it's like, it feels like some sort of Bedouin language he slipped in.
It did tap into that whole what's behind the closed door that we've spoken about frequently on this podcast. King uses, keep the door closed until the very last minute, and then the reveal is either going to live up to your expectations or fall short.
Like it does feel when we read what's the last Mr. Mercedes book?
End of Watch. Like he had, but like, you know, he would come up with an idea like, I'd like to do something about like games, and maybe there's a game that hypnotizes kids, and then, so he put it down on a little bit of post-it note and stuck it on his wall. And then like a bunch of them were stuck in his book, but none of them quite fleshed out. That's kind of what this book feels a bit like. Like he just had ideas he didn't know what to do with, so he just pulled one off the wall and said, "Okay, this one is about like just a really quiet moment in life for a lot of people, but it's a standout moment." Like the second chapter, it's basically Chuck as a businessman, and he just sort of walks past like a drumming busker, and he just has this inclination to just dance, and he can dance. And then this sort of not young girl, but someone slightly younger than him starts dancing with him, and they sort of create a storm. They sort of like, you know, they shut that place down with their dance moves. Yeah, isn't that the first story?
That's the second one.
Is it? Okay.
The first one is the city. So the first one is like the whole California. You know what? Let's do it in order so we don't get mixed up. The first story is basically following a guy during the apocalypse, but it feels like that quote of like, we don't go out with a whimper, but with a bang. But in reverse, like the world is going out with a whimper. Like it's like the internet's slowly going down. California slipped into the ocean, but everything's quite calm. There's no particular rioting. Everyone's carrying on with it.
No, you know, just accepting of it.
More concerned about like YouPorn and YouTube and Facebook and
Netflix,
you know, which kind of ties into the themes of Mr. Harrigan a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there's more life than your phone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really take this one anywhere. But so the central character of the first story just makes his way on foot to his ex-wife. And it's just a nice story about the end of the world.
There are lots of, from what I remember, there's lots of people stood in windows, looking out of windows, isn't there, of him walking past in the streets. Yeah,
it's quite, I guess it makes sense later on why it's so dreamy and it doesn't come off as real, but not in a this is stupid way, just like a what is going on. It's a very morose world.
Exactly that, yeah.
I don't know, I just liked it as a little story. I do like apocalypse stuff. Initially I thought it kind of reminded me of like Chuck Palahniuk style.
Right.
Just because he's very like, what's the point? What's the word? Nihilistic. Yes. But actually, I don't think this is that nihilistic. I think it's because last week you talked about does King have ghostwriters, which I've never even thought before. And then I just now it's that thing of like red car syndrome, where it's like, is this a style he normally writes in? You know?
Yeah.
But so and then like Chuck is appearing all over the city and no one knows what it is. And then we sort of find out that Chuck is just basically dying as we speak. and this is just the world in his head, the brain cells dying.
Yeah,
and it's like the lights are going out, and it's quite sad. Like
the synapses,
and it's like the equivalent of like they're looking up at the stars, and the stars are blinking out.
That's exactly it. That's actually really beautiful.
The very last, I guess, paragraph, we're pulled out of this world into the hospital room with Chuck, where he has a son and he's surrounded by his family who's dying, and that's like the end of Chuck and the story. So I liked it enough because I'm a huge Apocalypse fan, so I just liked, the highway is blocked, so people having to get out and walk in one of those sort of like desolate city. But that stuff I kind of like, even though it didn't really go anywhere in this book. It was just a a little snapshot thing of the things I do.
Yeah,
like.
definitely.
So then the second story, as I was saying, it's like the world is normal because we're not even in that world anymore.
Yeah,
that's right. Like Chuck is a businessman with a suitcase and a suit. I guess he's an accountant. And he just walks past a busker, and he gets his groove on with someone, and he just has.
This is a great boat. I
basically just has one of those moments that was probably going to flash before his eyes. You know what I mean? Like something really small, arguably, but super brave and not necessarily out of character, but just a really enlightening moment for him that just reminded him he's alive.
No, that's exactly it. It's like a man that's being told he's too old for the world, in essence, or too old to work, and then he has a moment where he appreciates the music that this person's playing. It's like one of his favorite songs, if I remember rightly, or something like that.
Oh, maybe. I didn't pick up on that.
And he just decides to just get down, puts his suitcase on the floor, undoes his tie a bit, loosens his shirt, and just gets down, and then is joined by another random walker by, and it was just it was wonderful. It encapsulates everything. It encapsulates everything I feel as a person. That moment, I thought, it was very personal.
Do you jump on those moments?
I like to think always. I do. Yeah, I think I'm not. I'm not every single time, but I'm not afraid to let loose in that sense.
Like
I have my moments.
Twice, I think I've been with my partner walking through the city, and there was like a news crew asking for like vox pops. And she's like, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, no, you go. I won't. And she won't do it without me.
No, I'm that person.
Like she got shy. And basically 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh, we should have done it. I don't know. I'm just caught on the spot. I'm really worried. I've just seen enough YouTube videos where they not play pranks on people, but like suddenly they make you look like a dumbass. You know what I mean?
It goes, in essence, it's like if you've got to deliver a presentation with a group of people that are also going to deliver a presentation, I'm the person that will go first. Likes to try to go first because I set the benchmark, and then you can it doesn't matter what happens after you've done your bit because your bit's over, and everybody else can aspire or fall short or excel and make you look bad. But it's about taking those moments and getting the most out of them, and not letting other people's thoughts, opinions, worrying about what they think of you get in the way. And there's a great instance where we were. I was at a secret film festival type thing that was based around Romeo and Juliet, and there was the Capulet house we had to go in. It was part of one of the events in this Hyde Park secret cinema. That was it, and it was for Romeo and Juliet. And there's a stage in this house, and everybody else was sat around or walking around and milling about. But as soon as I saw the stage, I was up on the stage and prancing around, and I got told by the security to get off the stage. But I'm not afraid to do that type of that type of approach. If you give me a platform, I will try to perform as best as I can with unabandoned care. You
weren't at the wedding when I did my best man speech, were you?
No,
it's not good.
No. I've had to do one best man speech before
because I was trying to prepare myself mentally, because the advice I was giving another friend who was doing best man was really good, but it's that thing of like, it don't matter when you're up there. And that is like, don't forget, no one knows you're nervous, and no one knows what the speech is. So no matter what it is, as long as you do it with confidence and like a TV presenter, that you can fake through it.
Yeah, that's what when I did my performing arts course, which I guess explains why I'm so happy to do this type of thing, is if you make a mistake, don't say
no one knows.
No one will know. They'll just think it's part of the piece. But if you draw attention to it, then the world will crumble around you.
It gets awkward, yeah. To be fair, this wedding, it was a long table, so there's no one opposite me, and I didn't have a date. And I sat next to the groom, and they had a little kid who was just really running around. So he was not at the table for like 2/3 of the meal, which left me facing like all the guests, basically with no one on my left and 2 empty seats on my right for a fair amount of time. And a lot of people looking at me going, oh, look, he looks all over on his own. You know what I mean? It's like, okay. And then he sort of just got up and did like, he was so relaxed, and he so didn't want it to be like a big deal.
Yeah.
That it had the reverse effect, because at no point was I told what was going to happen.
Really?
When I would say, what's the process? He said, don't worry about it, man. We'll deal with it. Just relax, dude. Just like, it's cool, dude. It's cash. So then he was just like, okay, dude, it's time for your speech. It's like, now. And I sort of, I don't know, I fumbled the crap out of it. Like really? I literally stood up and I was like, time for my speech, everyone. Realized I didn't have, like, it was in my jacket. I wasn't wearing my jacket. I turned around, the jacket wasn't on my chair, and I'd already like, hey, everyone, time for the speech. And I'd put it on like a coat hook near me. So I was like, hey, I'm just going to go over there and get my speech. And then there was a sort of skit where I was reading from my phone. At that time, it seemed like a good idea. And
you don't want awkward silences when you're about to do a speech. That's
basically, I was like, the next bit is from my phone, because it was supposed to be like a mock. Here's some text that people have sent me about the groom. But because I was so nervous, I put all those messages in like notes, not like like just a different app. So I just went in there to the app I normally use, didn't see the notes, and instead of thinking, I'm in the wrong app, I panicked. I went, there's nothing in there. Never mind that. So it basically, in the middle of a speech, I just went, let me just check my phone. Check my phone. And went, never mind that. Like in the middle of speech, and it's just,
And thankfully, Chuck didn't have any of these sort of silent moments.
Yeah,
Chuck just danced.
So don't get me wrong. I try to go for it, but it's not always that easy. And then the more you fumble. But anyway, that's like it's. I said yes to the speech thing at least, so I tried.
Yeah.
But I like to think I try to capture all those little moments in life. But there's probably a good lot I let slip.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this book is like, it's when a book can just remind you, like a film or a book or something fictional has the power to remind you to sort of grab life by the horns, as it were.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that just on a side to that, I was watching a small YouTube short earlier on, and in it the guy says, if I was to offer you £1 million to not argue with your partner for the rest of the day, would you take it? And the woman was like, yes. And the man was like, yes, of course I could. And he goes, okay, well, that's great. So if I was to offer you £10 million today, right now, but you don't wake up tomorrow, would you take it? And they were like, no, definitely not. He goes, so you're saying to wake up tomorrow is worth more to you than £10 million? And they were like, well, yeah, of course. He goes, well, why don't you wake up feeling like that every single day?
Oh.
Why do you wake up and moan about having to be up, having to go to work, having to do the day, having to live through that day, when it's worth more to you than 10 million quid? And I thought that was pretty damn fucking good.
I reckon it's like Joe versus the volcano, though. I reckon I would have a good day. I would max out that 10 million.
Yeah, but would you take that over waking up tomorrow?
Can I fake my death and sneak up? No, I get your point. I'm not going to work around it. But so yeah, like, I guess the first time I read this, that first one was my favorite because it was like, not. You ever go to like what's that bar in England that does
wow,
like there's no music in it, so it's like
silent bar?
No, it's just like a pub, but they don't have a music license, so everything, like the beer and the food, is super cheap.
Wetherspoons.
It's like when I was a teen, not necessarily, but like a student, for example, like I'm going to Wetherspoons, I'm going to get the mixed grill because it's really cheap and you get a bit of everything. It was like quantity over quality. I mean, you're in Wetherspoons. I probably should have name dropped it. But then when you're older, you get more refined. You're like, well, yeah, this is less food, but the value is shifting. You know what I mean? Like, more doesn't necessarily mean better.
Yeah.
And this is a weird analogy, but that's sort of what the first one was for me, why it was my favorite, because almost I'm not in a teenagery way, but like I could just grasp the obvious story. And it had like fun things for me, like apocalypse stuff.
Yeah.
And then the second time I read it, the second one is just like, it has more subtleties. And
Completely
this is
agree.
why I can sort of agree, or not agree, but I can see why the people who didn't like it, because it's such a big shift.
Mm.
And so this second story has no real feel like that first story. We're not back in that mind space of his, that mind palace world of his. But it was just a beautiful short within this short. And so the third one, we go back to when he was even younger. And I guess like well, we find out he had a sister who died. His parents and his sister died in a car crash when they were very young, which kind of ties a little bit into the girl he was dancing with in the short story, the middle one. Like it's a sort of echoing of what it might have been like to have a sister, you know. Because I guess what I like about that second story is it's like at no point does it allude to like he fancies her or he's going to have a sort of, you know what I mean? It's just pure. It's a very pure event. Just why it stands out. There's no like, oh, and plus she's hot. Maybe I'll get my end away with her. There was no, I guess,
didn't allude to that at all.
No, right. And the third story, which is the first part of the story, but told at the end, I guess I'll stop explaining that. I think people get the simple concept. It's arguably the most, not batshit crazy, but like, again, it feels like he's pulling off Post-it notes off the wall and putting him in a story that has no illusion to this type of thing happen. It's almost like the Mr. Mercedes, where it's like, let's have hypnotizing games. Like, huh? That doesn't quite tie in.
But he's got
psychic powers because he lives with his grandparents, and basically in the cupola, the turret, the attic, if you go up there's a good chance you will see a glimpse of the future, and it will be someone's death. We find out that the granddad once saw someone's death and they died, so he knows it's true. And we find out he saw his grandma's death. The grandpa's wife's. He saw her death. So there's this illusion of like it's the waiting that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And eventually she does die, and there's a really nice reflection. Like he wants to know how she died, and it was very, I think he's not ungraceful, but like it wasn't, she was in like a store, and she sort of like, when she went down, she took all this stuff on the shelf with her. And it's just those little things that you potentially think about, which are arguably unimportant, but you just can't help, you know, like what's in the moment of death. And when there's just not obscure things, but like there was peanut butter all over the floor because she knocked the aisle down. It's like, it's just, I guess I love that, catching small details that because of the magnitude of the moment are going to stick with you. You know what I mean? Like this kid is probably not done with peanut butter, but for a long time, he's going to associate peanut butter with his grandma dying. And then he goes up to the cupola, the room, and he sees his own death. And this is where we get the sort of final line of like, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm just going to live my life to the full. I have multitudes, and there's lines. I think they say in this story, like when an old man dies, we lose a library, which feels very tied into what the whole theme of this is and the whole multitudes. Because the last line is this last story, and the last line is, I contain multitudes. And so,
what do you take that to mean?
He is his own world. And this is where I think it kind of ties it. I just this morning, 2 minutes before you clocked on, was just flipping through the book, and I found the last like 4 pages. It's just a little King outro, and he's talking about all the stories. So I'll get to that in a bit, but it is, for me, and not frustrating, but like, you don't have to tell us, you don't have to be that blunt with your stories, King. When the story means nothing to you, you could keep that to yourself a bit, because it does kind of not seem like it's nothing to him, but he just made some shit up and tied it together. It wasn't a thought out 3-act play. But so I'm going to go to my notes from here on out.
Well, it may or may not be on your phone.
Oh God.
So this is what it was like waiting for your speech at that wedding, right?
I didn't put them in order.
Classic.
This is exactly what the wedding speech was like. Like, I guess so here's something which I thought was like a nice, like, if you get what I think he was trying to say, or what I take from this, it is quite a psychedelic mind death. We basically start talking about infinite worlds. because now this is like, if you exist in my head and everything you are and have and know and are still exists, I'm also in your head, and everyone you've ever met exists in your head. So then in my world you exist, but you have your own world in that world, and everyone you've ever met in that world has their own world, and it's infinite. I think someone was comparing it to a John Fenimore Cooper, a Nathaniel Onbridge short story called like The Incident at Owl Ridge. And it's a short story, but where a man is being hanged.
Yes.
And at the last minute, the rope snaps and he lives his life. But it's like, no, that was just like I guess like the Passion of Christ. Like it was like a fever dream, but like.
Yeah.
And basically, if you start thinking like that, reality melts and it's like an infinite loop. It's not necessarily anything new. I was thinking Men in Black have played that joke once every single movie. There's like the galaxy and the cat's collar. I think at the end of one of them, like the guy kicks open a locker and it's like basically we're a small world in a bigger world, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
I guess it was a nice play on that. I didn't need this to be longer.
No.
I guess I didn't want it to be longer because it was still so you had to get a grasp of what each chapter was. And I guess because it took me 3 reads, it's not that I kept reading it because I didn't enjoy it, to be fair. Like, but by the end of the first read, I was sort of on board mostly. I just like, I think because it's been like a 3-week gap, I was like, you know what, I'm going to read that second one again because I just don't have much to say on it, for example. And I'm sure there's more to it. And then that just kept going.
Yeah, no, completely. And I mean, for me, I came away from it thinking there was elements of that I really liked, but I don't really get what they're talking about. It kind of went over me, I glossed over it, and I moved on to the next story straight away.
Which is Harley Gibney, so I bet you're racing to that.
Yeah, it really was. But talking with you now, and having done the bit of research that I did and seeing what some other people have thought about it, it's made me appreciate it a lot more for what it actually was and what it was trying to do. And by the sounds of it, pretty successfully did for you, and for elements for some other people as well. Like I really did enjoy the dance.
The middle section.
The middle section. Just for reading it, not really understanding the greater context of it. But now with this discussion, it's taken on more extra added depth and layers because,
it ties in more.
Yeah, the minuscule moments, grasping the minuscule moments, the saying yes rather than saying no to things, basically.
Yeah, because I guess at the end of that second one, he starts to feel a bit sick as he walks. There's a slight morose moment. And what we then realize is that he doesn't know when he's going to, because it's just a weird vignette of him dying on a deathbed, and he can roughly gauge how old he looks.
Yeah.
So there's this, because he's not that old. He's 39.
39 years.
Thanks for 39 years, Chuck. So they do tie, don't get me wrong, the chapters do tie in, but they are, as I go back to now when I was reading about him writing this, they are 3 separate short stories that he then tied together. It wasn't written with the intention of, I will do a Tarantino, but a reverse Memento. I'll do a backwards story that's going to tie in. He just had, he either had the idea or he saw a businessman dance. I think he just saw a musician. He thought, imagine if a businessman started dancing like Christopher Walken in that Fatboy Slim music video. And he just, I guess that's exactly what I'm saying. He wrote that on a Post-it note and stuck it on a wall. And then it tied into this. What's really clear, how old is King now? You would know the fact.
74. Think
he's contemplating death.
Yeah.
And it's not just, he's a horror writer, so he always does. Like, it really feels like he's contemplating his own
morality. 75.
Well, good on him. He's still knocking them out.
Oh, he is, yeah.
Because I guess when I see him, he was that cameo in It. It's like, I thought that, I don't know if you watched Curb Your Enthusiasm. I watched the latest season, and Cry Macho, the latest Clint Eastwood film. It's like, ooh, they are getting old. Like they're becoming visually quite frail looking.
Yeah,
There
completely.
has to be like, I don't know if you lose your appetite when you're older, but anyway, it's I guess King has always thought his morality because of it's the nature of what he has to write. Even if he's not thinking it, he has to force himself to think of
Plus,
characters.
you got to remember he came close to it himself, didn't he? When he got run over, that was touch or go.
And I think I was listening to an interview of him, and he said the scariest thing for him is actually like sort of basically the thoughts of dementia. And not like not losing his essence, but like not being able to write, not having the whereabouts to just continue living. And I feel like not necessarily a nod to that, but with Chuck being in the coma, it felt like a sort of like, I don't know, like there's, you can still keep going. Like whether you're writing something down and putting something out there or not, you have multitudes.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take you to this closing thoughts of Endev 42, which is a podcast or a blog that he writes called Documenting the Meaning of Life. And I like this summary, and it'll be interesting to see if it aligns with yours, Scott. So what King is getting at, I believe, is that when we look up the starry night and we see multitudes and the wonder and the brilliance, well, the same multitudes are within us. But just like the starry night, we have to look, but look in it in a different direction. Does King ever answer the question of meaning in this novella? No, but he leaves us with Chuck coming to the following realization. During his youth, of course, I am wonderful. I deserve to be wonderful. I contain multitudes. King tells a tale of an average man who could dance, and a boy who saw his own death, and the death of many of those near and dear to him. A boy who became a person, who grew into a suit, into an accountant, and for the most part stopped dancing, stopped dreaming, and fell into the mundane existence that midlife brings to all of us. If anything, King challenges us not to give up answers, but begging us to see the multitudes both within and without, and reminding us the inevitable demise of both. So there you go.
Yeah, that's great.
I thought so. I thought it summed it up beautifully.
I'm not going to do the nitpick thing, but I guess that's the one thing that did not quite sync up, was that it ends with the young him saying, now I know when I'm going to die, I'm going to live life to the fullest.
Yeah,
cut to a boring accountant.
But then that's exactly it. That's exactly what happens. Like when you're young, you think you've got the world at your feet and you're going to conquer it and you're going to take it over and you're going to do the multitudes. But life finds a way.
But he also seemed quite content. He didn't seem regretful of his life. So there's sort of a sense that he found purpose in that. I'm doing the hand gesturing, the small life. You know what I mean? Like his like, I'm going to live life to the max is just, I want a wife and a kids and a house, and I just want a nice life.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I don't have, like, I'm going to dance if I want to dance, but it's not like I'm going to become an explorer. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go mental because that's not what I want. I'm going to, I don't know, live the life I want. There's an argument for that, I guess, but it doesn't quite tie in. Like I said, it's not a perfect novel. It's not a perfect short story. Regarding that first story, what do you make of those poor people in his world, in his head? Because it's almost hard to talk about because it doesn't necessarily, the idea of it ties into everything, but we get an entire short story following these characters. It reminded me of Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
Are the computer-controlled RPG characters real? There's a scene at the end where like Tom Cruise is being explained that this is all just sort of a dream, but a controlled dream. And Kurt Russell, as his sort of therapist father figure, is there, and he's the one who steals the scene. He's like, "No, I got a wife and kids," and it's like,
I'm real. There's no.
But is he playing that? Is he programmed to react that way, or is he reacting that way? I guess that's what the first story sort of reminded me of like to Toby, how do I know I'm real and we're not in your dream, and you're going to wake up? And like, am I the original in my life? How am I? What if I'm the multitude inside of you?
Yeah, very much so. But so Life of Chuck.
That's a dig at technology again, doesn't he?
It's a good story. I did enjoy it. I've enjoyed it now, talking about it even more. And in retrospect and reflecting on it, I think it's actually probably one of the better ones of the book.
It's not, I guess it's that thing where it's like, it's not horror in the sense of horror, it's just scary in the sense of like, we are really talking about death now in quite a real, despite its like fantastical element, not fantastical elements, but the meandering nature of the, worlds and worlds, it's still very much contemplating death in quite a real way. Like, I don't know what the average life is for like a, what seems like a now healthy American, but like, I don't know, 80, 85.
Yeah.
And who knows? I'm not, this isn't a statement on him and his health at all, but like, it's that thing of, okay, if he's 70, 74, you say, like, will he still be with us in 10 years? Which, and in the moment, it feels like a long time. But if I think about where I was 10 years ago, it's like, oh, crap. It can go in the blink of an eye. And I guess it's just a reminder to go and dance.
And so to take this in a sort of different, like slightly different direction, but this I'm going to dedicate this podcast to my stepmom, who passed away a week ago.
Oh, mate.
Very unexpectedly. She was just before Christmas diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and then it just rapidly escalated from there. And she passed away last Friday. And she is a person that grasped the multitudes.
Yeah.
She really was quite a revelation for us as a family. Having come from like a relationship with my father, who was very sort of strict and regimental and very not like growly manly like raw, but sort of like me, but very stern,
serious man.
And a serious man, deep thinker, and the relationship wasn't quite as strong as you would expect it to be between father and child when growing up. But she when she came along, she softened him up, and I told him recently on the phone that he found his feminine side through her, and his ability to embrace that feminine side. And like I'm going back to saying that she grasped the multitudes. She would stop and talk to people on the street, homeless people, find out their history. She was always in sort of amnesty groups and trying to change the world for the better. She was talking to people on death row, sending them letters, and being a person that they could talk to. These are things that most normal people wouldn't do, but she did them all. And she affected and touched a lot of people's lives, in the same way that, it seems that Chuck was touching through the billboards and everything. And having an
she's
impact.
A real humanitarian. Yeah,
she was. She was a very strong-willed lady, and she'll be a deep miss. So, Celia, this podcast is for you. Thank you for everything you did for me, my brother, and my sister, and my dad especially. You will be deeply missed, and thank you for showing us that the multitudes are there within us and we should grasp them. So yes, there we go.
It's lovely, mate.
No worries.
Perfect. No, I'm not going to follow that up, so let's fade that out here.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week.
Like and subscribe. Dance more, listeners.
Basically
take the bull by the horn.
We're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.
Stephen King's If It Bleeds, but if we can make the intro even longer, never mind the life of Chuck, how about the life of Toby? Last episode, you were on the cusp of a date.
Oh, was I? Oh, yes, I went on a date, didn't I? That's right.
From our viewers' point of view, this is a seamless 1 week jump, but for us, it's about 2 or 3 weeks.
That is very true.
How was date with Mademoiselle?
It was. She was a lovely lady. We met. We went for a walk. This is funny. Okay. So I went all out. I was like, right, I'm going to dress up. I've got my
cow prints on. I got the cow print.
Cow prints on. My Doctor Who coat. Let's go. No, I put some effort into what I was wearing. Up. I've got a new pair of white trainers that go really nice with jeans, and I've been follow my YouTube style guru videos and all this sort of
Nice.
stuff. So I looked all right. I looked sharp, I thought. And I rocked up, and she rocked up, and she also looked nice. But you could tell that this wasn't a woman that appreciated somebody that put a lot of effort into their clothes. Not saying that she didn't, but she kind of was just like, okay, I can see you put a lot of effort in, but that's not really what I'm here for, sort of thing.
Well, she said that to you.
So no, but you could just see in her demeanour and the way she looked me up and down. She clocked my trainers, which were the first time I'd ever put them on and worn them out. And they were very white, and they looked great. But she goes, right, should we go for a walk around the park? No, I was like, motherfucker.
Oh no.
If I'd known you were going to go, no, not go for a coffee. Let's go for a walk around the muddy park. I would not put these shoes on.
I
But I was like, yeah, let's do
need
it.
2 plastic bags and some rubber bands.
Yeah. But we went for a walk around the park. My shoes got slightly dirty, but I managed to clean them up. The date was lovely. She was a very interesting, intelligent, driven woman with many a tale of harrowing back. It was some of the stuff that she was talking about. I came away feeling a bit depressed.
Oh God, sorry. you were really praising her there. I was about to make a joke about
she was
this
lovely.
lady is also not sponsoring us, despite that. But then you took a dive to you came out depressed. Toby,
That is some heavy stuff.
I feel like I'm in over my head, and I'm suddenly thinking maybe this is a very personal date you went on that should be on the podcast.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Are you seeing her again?
No.
Okay.
No, that was it. That was the
Name her.
end
No,
of
I'm
it.
joking.
No, I'm not going to.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Like I said,
wow.
if she's listening, it was a great day, and I very much enjoyed meeting her and finding out about her. And there wasn't that sort of connection or spark, and she didn't like my white shoes. So.
Maybe it was all a test.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get him stressed up really smart, and then we're going to go through my path, and I'll see his reaction. Did you feel like you covered your, I guess, irritation about going through the park, or were you a perfect gentleman? I love the park.
Oh yeah, no. I was.
If I was to speak to her, would it be that thing where her story is like, yeah, he was very trainer up, like you come off as a nutter, Toby.
No,
you covered
I was
well.
very accommodating, and we went for a walk around the park, and I managed to stay out of all the muddy puddles. But I did accidentally bang my shoe against the underside of a picnic table, and obviously picnic tables have been in the parks for a very long time, so I got mud on my shoes. But I went into the toilet and washed them under the tap. And
send her a cleaning bill, Toby. Just send her a cleaning bill. I think she would understand. Be that guy. I read about on the internet who.
Oh, brilliant! Brilliant.
Well, but that's. I don't know what I was expecting. It wasn't quite that, but I love it.
Always good for a tale of woe or joy, depending on how you want to.
Agony and ecstasy.
Yeah, that's modern dating for you.
My coffee's drunk.